Today's daf is daf ches in Sanhedrin as we learn for Chenikol Beis Yisrael and Sunnah Matzah Shivya. We're at the fourth line of daf ches Amud Aleph. Yesterday we started talking about the psukim that refer to Moshe Rabbeinu giving admonishment and explaining to the Jewish people about the future, and he gave them rules. Shmo ben achechem v'shvatetem tzedek, etc. And he goes on to ben ish ben achiv, ben gero. We explained all those, and now the pasuk goes on. Elo sakir panav mishpat. Don't show favoritism. And then the pasuk goes on in the very same place. Kakoton kagadol tishmun, on the fourth line of Daf Ches Amud Aleph. You listen to small cases and big cases, like small and big. What do we mean? That's why we have a famous klal when it comes to judges or bezdin, a din Torah, din pruta kedin meya, that the same attention, presumably, that you pay to a large case, a big case, millions of dollars, for a small case, you also give that attention. So we say, in what respect? Should be it's dear to you. Din shel pruta, a small case, a case involving small money. Din shel meya money, like as if it's $100,000. So in what respect? If it's, in other words, you should examine it, investigate it, and paskin correctly. Cheat, obviously. What's the difference if it's a small case or a big case? Obviously, you want to do what's fair. It means this. You might say, look, somebody came along with a case involving a penny. And then people walked in and said, no, we have a case here of $1 million. That's much more important. No, the guy with the penny was there first. You deal with that first. You don't say, since that other case is a bigger case, we should deal with that first. You don't do that. Plus it goes on, Lo Sagur Meish, be afraid of no man. And we explained yesterday, the day before, we had this Amr of Chanan, Al Technas Devarach Meish. In other words, don't suppress anything. If you know some testimony, and even if it's your Rebbe going against your Rebbe who's looking at it the other way, he's leaning the other direction. No, you still have to, don't suppress what you know. If you can give a good opinion here, you should do so. Because the judgment belongs to God, and Rashi says as if you're judging God. How so? Hashem says like this: not enough that a bad judge who takes away money from somebody who it belongs to and gives it to the other guy who it doesn't belong to, right? They do it improperly against the law. God says, what do I have to do? If money was taken away from, let's say he said the money belonged to Reuben, and the judge says, no, give it to Shimon. So not only is he a Russia that he gave it to the wrong guy, now Hashem says, I now have to make sure that Reuben gets his money back because I got to make sure everything's even. If you took it away from Reuben unfairly, I have to give it. God has his own cheshbon and make sure that everything gets equaled out. So it's not enough that they judge falsely and evil with evil intent, but they make me, I have to now, they matriach me, they bother me, that now I also have to make it good. And anything which is more difficult to you, Moshe said to them, to the judges, anything that's difficult to you, bring to me, ushmatav, and I will hear it. Moshe was punished for this because he, so to speak, said, if you have any difficulty, bring it to me. I'll take care of it. I can pass on everything. Shenemar, Vayakrev Moshe mishpaton l'fnei Hashem. Moshe didn't know the answer when the Bnei Safka came to him and said, "What about our share? Is it fair? Our father had no sons, and should our shares get lost, and we weren't going to get anything?" And Moshe didn't have the answer. He had to bring it to Hashem for an answer. So because of that, because he, so to speak, was a little bit of gaiva l'chora, even though he said Moshe had a share al pnei adama, but he said the fact that he said, "Bring me any of your questions," seems to indicate that he was a little bit of arrogance there, and because of that, Hashem punished him, and he didn't know the answer to tzlafchat. Maskul of Nachmar Yitzchak, was he really arrogant? Miksiv Ashmiachem? Did he say, "Listen, tell me what your problem is, and I'll let you know the answer," as if he knew everything? Ushmatav Ksiv, it says, "I will hear it." Igamir Negamid, if I've learned what the halach is in that case, I will let you know. And I will, if I've learned that, I've learned it, and I'll give you the answer. If not, I'll go find out. I'll go learn it. So Moshe wasn't arrogant over here. All he said was that if you have any difficulty, bring it to me. Either I'll answer it if I know the answer. If not, I'll take it up the next step. Like they say in Hebrew, ani avir hala, right? They don't want to give you an answer. Say, I'll pass this on. It means he'll bring it to God. Elikatanya means this. What happened was this. The reason Moshe didn't know the answer to B'no Slavchad, Kedatanya Ruya Parshas Nachal Sheikosav Aydei Moshe. Should have been, Moshe was fit that he could have given the Parsha Nachlas. He could have known what it was and given the answer directly from God and told B'no Slavchad, Moshe ben Ella, Shezach B'no Slavchad v'nichbal Yadon. But B'no Slavchad, because they were tzadikaniot, because they were righteous women, they were zocha that the Parsha should be written through them. In other words, they should raise the question. The answer would be given by God. So to speak, that Moshe didn't tell it to him in advance, like all the other halachas that he said in Mishpatim, etc. This one was said through the agency of B'no Slavchad. Similarly, Ruya is a Parshas Mekoshesh because of Aydei Moshe ben. Remember, who was the Mekoshesh? That was Slavchad, right? The one who chopped down wood on Shabbos and was guilty and chayiv death. And the Mekoshesh should have been written through Moshe also. So listen, if you're Machal Shabbos, you cut down wood, it's one of the melachos of Shabbos, of detaching something, then you're chayiv misa. So Moshe could have told him that Elshon is chayiv Mekoshesh, but because the Mekoshesh Eitzim was guilty, the Nichtav Yada was set through him, L'lamecha, to teach you, that we teach liability through somebody who is liable, so somebody who's guilty, in this case the Mekoshesh, who's chus la'idei zachai, and we teach schuyot, meaning that they're entitled to the inheritance through somebody who is meritorious himself, like the B'no Slavchad. In other words, Hashem rewarded good and rewarded bad to show you that way. Ksivit says, Pasuk goes on in beginning of Dvarim. Moshe says, I commanded your judges at that time, told them what to do. Ksivit says, I commanded you at what time? So which one is it? Did he command the laws to the Shoftim or to the to the Hamonam, to the people? Amr Abelazar, Amr Samloi, Asar Letzibor. Number one, there's a warning to the public, Shetei Amos Dayan, that they should revere the judges. They should fear the judges and revere them. That's what Vatsav Eschem basically. I told the people, the people, the public at that point, to hearken to the judges, Vasar Dayan, and I also gave a warning to the judge, Sheyizbel as a tzibur, that he should bear patiently the tzibur. You have to deal with them, deal with the people, deal with them, as we said yesterday, to deal with them carefully, and Yemasunin Badin, be temperate in judgment. In other words, don't rush to judgments. Don't try to just dismiss the case quickly. Listen carefully. Ad kama, how far do you have to be patient with the people? Amrav Hanan, Vitem Rav Shabtai, Kasha Yisa Omen Esayone. The way he explained it later on, right? Listen, busting in the midbar. The way the father who raises the child, the way he schleps along the nursing baby. In other words, treat them like children. Ksivit says, when Moshe said to Yoshua, Ksiv ki ata tavo es amazeh, you will come with these people. Ksiv, it says ki ata tavi, you will bring the people. In one case, tavo sounds like you'll come with them, joining them. In another pasuk, it says you will bring them. Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Amar Moshe Yeshua. Moshe said to Yeshua, Ata vaskenim shebador, you and all the elders of the generation imam, you together with them, all together you'll lead the people. You'll be with them. Amar Kodesh Baruch Hu, Hashem said no. Makel, Hashem said to Yoshua, take your staff, beat them on their skulls. Dabar echad lador. There's only one leader in a generation. Bein shnei dabar and lador. No two generations. So you have to have one leader. If you share the leadership, it usually doesn't work. So that's what Hashem said. And how do you see this in the Psukim? And Rashi says, because when Moshe, the first pasuk, it says ata tavo, it says kasher el oretz Hashem nishba Hashem, bring them to the country, to the land that Hashem promised. So Moshe is talking, saying, you will come with them to the land that Hashem promised. In the pasuk that says ki ata tavi, you will bring them, there it doesn't say kasher dibur Hashem, but it says Asher nishbati, that I told you to come. And as he told them, it says El Oretz Hashem nishbati level. So Hashem is speaking in first person. So the second pasuk is in first person, when Hashem, so to speak, corrected Moshe. Moshe said, you will come with the leaders, together you'll lead them. But Hashem said, no, you will alone lead them. Tana zimun b'shlosha. What is zimun? Zimun is a summons, right? You receive a summons to come, or an invitation, like a nice way of putting it is an invitation, or the way they've shortened the words today because people can't use multiple syllables, so they say an invite. It's no longer an invitation, it's an invite. It says, when are you invited or summoned to the court, right? Or we say, if it's really bad, you'd call it a subpoena, Satana zimun v'shlosha. So what is zimun? You're inviting somebody. My zimun, ilay mebirka zimun, like we make nevarech, nevarech, we say Rabosai nevarech or Rabosai milvan mention. We make a zimun with 3 people. Vatanya zimun ubirkas zimun v'shlosha. Zimun is with 3 and birkas zimun is with 3. So we already know that zimun is different than birkas zimun. V'chitem prushkim b'farish, maybe just explaining it. My zimun, birkas zimun. So maybe that's what we're talking about. Birkas zimun is with 3. Vatanya zimun b'shlosha, birkas zimun b'shlosha. 2 separate things. Zimun is with 3, and then birkas. If the first one says zimun and birkas zimun, so you could say birkas zimun is explaining what zimun is. But here he says zimun is with 3, and also birkas zimun is 3. So obviously zimun is something else. Elamai zimun azmun ledim. That means subpoena or a summons to come to the court. Kiyada Rabba, like Rabba said, Hani Beit Tlasa, Daini, these 3 judges, the Asvi, they're sitting in court. Va'azul shlicha de beitina, and they send out the bailiff or whatever he's called to go subpoena the litigant to come to court. Va'omar, and when the bailiff said mipuma dechad, he said, I'm telling you in the name of Judge, in the name of Judge Schwartz, you must come. It doesn't mean anything. If 3 sitting in court, he has to name in the name of the 3, all 3 judges sitting in the court. He's got to name all of them and say, you were summoned to court in front of these 3 rabbis. That's only if it's not on Monday or Thursday. On Monday or Thursday, they sit anyway. It's only if they were summoned in a special case, it's not Monday or Thursday. But on a day where the court is in session anyway, then there's no problem. Just come to the court, or come to, even if he mentions one of the judges, or come to the court, that's good enough as well. So the Mishnah said Tashlume Kefel also requires 3. Tashlume Kefel or Arba Chamish requires 3. Sholcha Rav Nachman bar Rav Chisda. Listen to this. Rav Nachman said, Rav Nachman bar Rav Chisda sent a message to Rav Nachman bar Yaakov. Different Rav Nachman. Yiladen Rabbeinu, teach us, Rabbi. We're in the first of the wide lines of the Gemara. Dina Knas V'Kama. How many judges do you need for a case of knas? What's a case of knas? Like onus umafata, when you pay more than the damage. And as by onus umafata, you should know that that's damaging too. Besides the fact that you pay, what we call nezek, how much is the girl worth less now, so to speak, on the market? That's nezek. Besides that, you have to pay the knas and the boshes, etc. The other things have been paid also. Or a case of kefel, when you burgled something and you're caught by Adam and they testify against you, got to pay double. Or if you sold it or slaughtered it, if it's an ox or a lamb, you got to pay 4 or 5. So Bakama, how many judges do you need? So Mike, what kind of a question is that? You're asking me, it's a Mishnah. On Antram, we learn a Mishnah. Mishlosha. He was asking this kasha. Can an individual expert judge be good in a case like that? Like we saw in a case of money matters or loans. Now, not Gezel, because by Gezel it says Elohim 3 times, indicating you have to have proper court, a proper court of 3 mumchen. Question over here is this like that? If a knas also these says Yachid good enough? Kami boile. Then knasos, is that also Yachid mumchen? They cannot judge knasos. Oh, lo. The Eliyahu become boile. Maybe a Yachid mumchen cannot judge a case of a knas, a fine, meaning like Rashi says, where you pay more. A fine can also be where you pay less. In the case of Chatzi Nezek, if you hold that Chatzi Nezek is a knas, sometimes you pay less, but it means you don't pay what the regular principle is, the principal damages. Says it's dangerous. Oh, lo, Amalei, that was his question. By Mumcha, do you say that they cannot judge? We know the Mishnah says you need 3. But what about a Yochid Mumcha? Can he judge? Oh, lo, Amalei, Tanisua. Tashlumi Kefa, Tashlumi Abachamisha, Vashlosha. That's what the Mishnah says. My Shlosha. Eli Vashlosha Yotzes, if you mean 3 commoners, 3 not experts. Ha'amar Avua Davuch. He answered him. This is Rav Nachman bar Yaakov was answering Rav Nachman bar Rav Chisda, your father's father. Now his father was Rabba bar Avua, right? But his father, your grandfather said B'shmei Rav Afilu Basar Ve'enyat. If you even had 10 judges, but they're all commoners, Psum L'Dinei Knasos. They can't do it. Elamumchen, Elamumchen. Elamumchen. we have to be mumchen. The kama shlosha. 3 mumchen is good enough, but you can't have yochid mumcha. So I was wondering here, what's the kasha b'chlal? Since this is not a case of a loan, by a loan we said, if you don't say erev parshios kan, you don't say that the parshas are merged, the parsha of loans and money matters, where he's simply denying a loan or not denying a loan. Is that also the basic pasuk is speaking about by a shomer, but by loans it doesn't say that. So by loans you could say, yochid mumcha is good enough. But over here we're talking about knossos, we're talking about gzela. By gzela it says 3 times judges. So isn't it obvious that you need mumchen? Like what's the havmin over here? He says, yeah, you need mumchen, but what's the havmin? So the Nemuka Yosef says, I found like this. Muki says this: Hasafik shenastapik haya bedina knossos ametsuyim, things that are common. Vim tiknu. Remember, we had before also that even if you hold that the Torah by a loan, you need 3. Why? Because you need 3 mumchen, because Erev Pashios Khan back in Daf Beis Daf Gimel. And we said over there, even if you hold there, but still the Rabbanan made a takana, Shelo Tilas Meglov. If you make it too complicated to collect your loan, nobody will lend out money. So we make it easy. Yochid mumcha is good enough, or Shlosh Yotos. Just like Bahados Valvos, we said that Yochid mumcha is good enough. Even if you need 3, but you don't need 3 necessarily mumchen, but you need 3, but Yochid mumcha is good enough. Maybe the only man at takana where it's like a loan, like I lend you money. If you don't pay me back, so I've lost my money. So there we say Yochid mumcha is good enough, so that Shelo Tilos Perform. Kamo, right? Kamo gzelos v'nezakim hamatsuyim, things that are common. Aval tashlim knas yoser mimash izek. Rav said lo tiknu. Maybe it's not common. V'kach yemaskana lo tiknu sheil l'shlosh yotos o yochid mumcha ela b'shnei tram. Davar hamatsuyim, things that are common, and we want commerce to continue and people lend out money. V'sheish memchar sar and kiss. Only in cases like that do we say that the Rabbanan made a takana. In other words, even if you say the Midaraisa, you really need 3. You need 3 people. The question is a Yochid Mumcha good enough? That's the issue over here. Back on Daf Beis and Daf Gimel, we discussed this before. We said, if you're Pashios Kasam Khan, she should need Mumchen also, even by a loan, because even though the pasuk said Magzel, you need there too. Because of Pashas going. So what do you need even 3 for? If Pashas, how do you know you need even 3 people at all for a judgment of a loan? It says lo ksavriya Pashas Sakana. But then really you need Mumchen. The reason you don't need it is because Shelo Tilas B'fnei Lov, and that's why we allow 3. And then we said, and Rabbi Chanina said, really, like he said, because of the Shelo Tilas B'fnei Lov. Then we had another opinion that we said, right? What was the opinion? It was who was it? Rav Acha Rav Ika, who said really 1 is kosher because Sedek Tishmar Yisecha, because of the cross we said it takana. So the point though is that even if you say you need 3 midaraisa, but the question is the Rabbanan were matakin here, and the 3 midaraisa by Gzelos should really be even 3 mumchen because it says in there. Mela by halva, if you say that Einer Pashas, you can say you don't need mumchen over there. The pasuk doesn't require you even to have 3 proper judges. Right? You don't even need that. Where do you get from? He says, you're Pashas Khan, but you should need Mumchen because of Shelo Tilas B'fnei Lov. And if you hold Einer Pashas Khan, then you don't even have a right that you need 3. Maybe 1 is good enough. But even if you hold Erev Pashas Khan, so you need 3 Mumchen, but just like we said, Shelo Tilas B'fnei Lov, and maybe here also we made a takana that Shelo to make it easier to collect the money, 1 Mumchen is good enough. Kamashma, we don't say that. Now we come to the next case in the Mishnah. Look back on Daf Beis, the case of Motzi Shemra. Now let's understand the case of Motzi Shemra. The 3rd line in the Mishnah back on Daf Beis and Aleph says, Motzi Shemra, says Onis Mafata. That means that's also a knas. And Motzi Shemra is with 3. Divrei Rav Meir. B'cham Omer Motzi Shemra be'esrim v'shlosha. 23, need a court of 23 because it's a capital case. Because it could be a capital case. Now, what's the case over here? What's the case in the Torah? A man is engaged to a woman. Erison. Mina Torah, she's his wife, right? They didn't have the Nisuin yet. They didn't have the Chuppah yet. He didn't bring her into the house yet, but she's an Arusa. If she commits adultery, her punishment is skila. That's her punishment. Punishment is skila, unless she's a Bas Kohen, but let's a regular woman. She gets skila. Okay. Now they come to the wedding night, and he says, wakes up the next morning, Pesach Basuach Masasi. She wasn't a virgin. She committed adultery after we were engaged. Now, if she wasn't a virgin at the time of the Erison, okay. So you could say she's only entitled to a ksub of 100, not a ksub of 200. She wasn't a virgin, but she didn't commit adultery, right? She might have been married before. Maybe she had a relationship with somebody before. Fine. But she didn't commit adultery. Adultery means after the Erison, she committed adultery. So he accuses her of adultery. Now, is that a capital case or is it a money case? Now, capital case, if he has witnesses that she committed adultery. The fact that he accuses her of adultery because she wasn't a virgin. She claimed she was a virgin and she wasn't a virgin. So he says, you committed adultery. Now, if he has no witnesses that she committed adultery, people who warned her and testified and saw her commit adultery. Adultery doesn't mean that they have to see them actually in the act, so to speak. They were in the room and they saw enough. They saw enough. They don't actually see the genitals touching. That's not enough to go that far to adultery. Nobody can ever see that. So it's almost impossible. So, but there's Adam. If he says I have Adam that she committed adultery, so it's clearly a case of adultery, right? If it's so a case of listen. The fact is that if he just says, listen, I know she committed adultery, I don't have witnesses to the fact, but I'm not giving her the ksuba. I'm divorcing her, no ksuba, because she's not entitled to it. We believe him. Why? Because we have a chazakah that a person wouldn't go ahead and make a wedding. In those days, the husband paid for the wedding, right? He's not going to go make a wedding and then just toss it all out and get rid of her the next day and make up a story that she wasn't a virgin. He's not going to do that. So we believe him in terms of ksuba. If he just says, listen, I'm taking my ksuba, so it's only a case, it's a money matter, right? The ksuba. We're not talking about killing her with adultery. If she committed adultery and he has witnesses, you kill her. If his claim is simply, I not want to give her the ksuba, I see she's not a virgin, she lied to me, he doesn't want to give the ksuba, then it's a money matter. Now, what happens if it turns out that she really was a virgin? She was a virgin. Somehow they're able to prove. We'll see the case later on. They're able to prove that he was lying. He was lying. The whole thing was a farce. Maybe he said, "I have Adam," that she was I have Adam that she committed adultery, and then we'll see a case. The other Adam came along and refuted the first Adam, made him zoman. A and B said she committed adultery. C and D came along and said you couldn't know. You were with us in San Diego on that day. You're lying. Oh, the whole thing is a lie. Now, the father of the girl says, you owe me $100. You owe me $100 because you lied, right? You lied. You lied about it. You owe me $100. Now, who's claiming the money now? In the first case, the husband says, I don't want to pay the ksuba, so to speak. He's claiming the money. I'm not paying the ksuba. And if it turns out that he was lying about the whole thing, then the father says, you owe me $100 and you got to stay married to her if she desires to stay married to you. Okay, so what's the issue over here? Rav Meir says, so when this case comes to court, Rav Meir says, all you need is a court of three because they're only talking about money. The Rabbanan say, no, it could be a capital case. What do you mean could be a capital case? It's not a capital case if he doesn't have Adam that she committed adultery. So what's going on over here? So now we see in the Gemara, a few lines from the bottom of the page. As from Shlosh, you need a court of 23. So which is it? It depends on the circumstances, right? If it's only a case where he wants the ksuba back, he doesn't want to pay the ksuba, so it's a court of three. It's a money matter. If it's a capital case, then it should be a court of 23. So obviously, Rav Meir would not say it's a court of three if it's a capital case. So what are we dealing with over here? So Chum say, well, it's a court of 23 because it could be a capital case, but it's not a capital case. It sounds like, since in theory, if he had witnesses, it could be a capital case, you need a court of 23. But it's not a capital case right now. Otherwise, Rav Meir wouldn't say you need three. You understand what I'm saying? You got to get the case straight. If he's only asking that he wants ksuba relief, he doesn't want to pay for the ksuba, then it's a case of three. That's what Rav Meir is talking about. Why did the Chum say, oh, you know what? It could be, in theory, it could be a case of 23 if he had witnesses to adultery. So therefore, he should have a case of 23. But it's not a case of adultery right now because Obviously, Rav Meir wouldn't say you need 3. 3 is for money, not for adultery. It depends on the case. If it's a case of 23, if it's a case of adultery that he has witnesses, fine, then you need a court of 23. Rav Meir would also say you need a court of 23 then. You need a capital court. What?
You start as a court of 23.
So let's see. So the Gemara is going to now bring many different circumstances which we can understand the machlokas. But he says, what if there's din nefashos? There's din nefashos if he claims adultery, if he has proof of adultery. So what? But he doesn't have it over here. But din nefashos might have. So what if there could be din nefashos? Right now, you don't. So we have 2 answers so far. Amar Ula, the choshen las kamifugi. Here we're concerned about a rumor. In other words, he's really coming to a court to demand the ksuba back. He says, listen, she committed adultery, right? Okay, so it's in court of 23, but the rabbis say, the chachamim say, you know what? Once it's said in court that he accused her of adultery, and therefore she does not tell the ksuba, maybe other people will hear about it. They'll be in the news, they'll be on the internet that he's accusing her of adultery, and now maybe Adam that he didn't even know about, the husband didn't know about, will come forth and say, yeah, we warned her, we told her about the adultery, and we saw it take place. Maybe Adam will come. Because if Adam will come, then it could be a capital case. So the Rabbanan say, you know what? Get a court of 23. Why? Because if you start with a case of 3, it's going to wind up at court of 23 anyway, because people will hear about it. Are you worried about laws? Worried about people talking about it? Mayor Suver, you're not worried about laws. Just because he's accusing of adultery doesn't mean you're worried. Somebody's going to hear about it, and Adam are going to show up and say, yeah, we saw the adultery take place, and therefore it should be a court of 23. But you are worried about rumors. That's one way to learn the machlokus over here. In other words, Rav Meir says, you start with the case. The case is really a money matter right now. He says, I want the ksuba back. I don't want to pay the ksuba. And the 3 of them. The Rabbanan say yes, but once he says that, maybe Adam will come forth. So if he should get a court of 23 to begin with. Rabba, but the gear says Rabba, not Rabba. Rabba, everybody says nobody's worried about laws. No, we're not worried about that. Here we're concerned about the honor of the first ones. What do you mean? He says, listen, I have proof. I have Adam that she committed adultery. So this is a court of 23. Then when he showed up, he assembled 23 judges, because he said, I have witnesses that she committed adultery. Then he said, the Adam didn't show up. They were scared. I couldn't find them. I don't have the Adam. Now, but you don't have Adam to commit adultery. You don't need a capital case. So the 23 judges started to disperse. But he said, wait a minute. Stay here. At least judge the money in this case. I'm claiming the ksuba. I don't want to pay the ksuba. Stay here and judge this for me. So what's the machlokas here? Machlokas is that Rav Meir says, no, you don't need. You're not worried about the honor of the court, so to speak, that you're going to send these guys away. And Rashi explains it. Right. Rav Meir, the last line on the page in Rashi. Rav Meir Savar Bishlosha. So they cover Hashem. Let the other guys leave. We don't care. But don't have to Bishlosha. Just get 3 guys to leave. Yeah, to stay and make the make the court of 3 out of the 23. Let the other guys go home. We're not worried about their honor. Once the 23 judges assembled to judge a capital case, and then it turned out, well, it's not a capital case. You know, I don't have the Adam for that, but at least judge me for that. Well, don't send the other guys home. It's not proper for their honor, and therefore you should stay with 23. So everybody agrees. So what's the machlokas here again? Rav Meir says, Ula says, you're really starting with a monetary case, but the Chacham say, yeah, but maybe people will hear about it and they'll show up. Other Adam will show up who the husband didn't know about, and it'll become a capital case. So therefore, you should start with 23. Whereas Rabbah says, no, nobody's worried about rumors we'll hear about it. The question is, here originally they assembled because he said, I have witnesses that she committed adultery. So it's a case of 23. Then he says, I don't have them anymore. I can't find the Adam didn't show up. So they started to disperse. Rav Meir says, fine, let them go home. Just keep 3 here for the monetary case. Rabbanan say it's not proper honor for them. Meisvei, we have a kasha now on Ula. The Tosefta says like this in the Brisa. The Chum say, listen, Tava Mamam, if he's demanding money, Bishlosha, then all he wants is the ksuba, basically, then it's 3. You need a court of 3. Tava Nefashas, if he says, I want to kill her, she committed adultery, I've ate him, then Bes Bishlosha. Okay, that depends what he asked for. Bishloma Laraba is the gear, so the second way to learn Tavamam and Tchila. If he originally asked for money, then it's a case of 3. It's a monetary case. B'shlosha. Tavanafashos. If he claimed that I have witnesses that she committed adultery, then Tchila. If he originally said I have witnesses the adultery, then Tavush Nefashas Tchila Afila Maman Bes Shlosha. Even if afterwards, like the way Rob explained it, even if afterwards he says, well, those Adam didn't show up, but I still want to make my monetary claim. So you leave it with 23 that they shouldn't be dishonored, so to speak, that the other judges shouldn't be dishonored by sending them home. Again, if you originally asked for money, you need 3. If you originally asked for the death penalty, even though later on it turned out to be only a monetary case because those Adam didn't show up, you need then you stay with 23. They shouldn't be dishonored. Elul Kasha. How does Ula explain this? According to Ula, the reason the Chum say you need 23 is because every monetary case could turn into a capital case because the Adam might hear about it. There'll be rumors about that he accused his wife of adultery, and they may show up. So according to Ula, how do you explain this brisa? According to the way Ula explained things, the Chum always say you need 23 because maybe Adam will show up later on. But the way this brisa reads is no. It says if he said originally, if the claim was only for money for the ksuba, you need 3. You don't start with 23. Kashan Ula. Amar Rava. So Rava says, Aniva Arisha Bechura, I and the lion in the Chabura in our gathering, in our Chabura of Talmid Chachamim, Tarkaminu explained it. Umanu Rav Chia bar Avin. Who is that? Who is that lion? Great Talmid Chacham Rav Chia bar Avin who explained this. This is what it's speaking about. Listen to this case. The case over here where he says Chamam Tava Mam Shlosha Tava Nefash Blas Mishosha is not so simple. Not where the husband asked for the money. What happened was this: Shehevi Abal Adam Shazinsa. The Adam originally, the husband did bring Adam that she committed adultery. Adam saw the adultery. Adam wanted to kill her. Behavior of Adam Vizimim. Then the father, countering those Adam, brought a second pair of Adam who refuted the first pair. Again, C and D said, A and B, you're lying. You couldn't have seen her commit adultery because you were with us in San Diego that day at that time. So, now, there's no concern about rumors, right? There's no concern about rumors. Why? Because they've already been disproven, the first set of Adam. So, Baligvos Maman, Mibal. That's what it means. Tavu Maman, it's not where the husband says, I don't want to pay the ksuba. Now the father, since the husband lied and she was really a virgin, now the father says, I want my $100 because you lied. That's the knas. No, it's not a capital case because there were a few. The Adam who claimed the
Adam Zimmerman, they were about to convict her of adultery,
the first Adam said she committed adultery. The Adam, the second set of Adam refuted them, and therefore she didn't commit adultery.
but
Right?
something happens to the Adam Zimmerman, don't they?
So the Adam Zoman, well, we're going to talk about this. The Adam Zoman, they will have another case. Now, if they were trying to kill you, the C and D would be killed. We're going to talk about that. That's a separate matter. We're going to talk about that in tomorrow's stuff. But that's right. They would be killed. But as far as what's the monetary claim right now? Now it's the father claiming $100 from the husband who lied. Okay, so that's the behavior. Father brought Adam zombies him later bow. Me bow. Now he's explaining the Tavu Mammon is not the husband claiming I don't want to pay the ksuba, but the father's claiming I want $100. Then Bishlosha. That's a new case now. Now it's simply okay. The case of her is gone. We've refuted your case. She didn't commit adultery. Now let's go next door to the regular court of 3. I want the $100, right? Over Makom Nefashos, best Mishlosha. But if they weren't refuted, if the Adam weren't refuted, right? Like at the beginning, you'd start with a course of 23. If it's a capital case, you start with 23. But if it's a case where the father's demanding his $100, that's how Ula will explain that case. In other words, over here, there's no concern about laws, right? You're not worried about that because, right? There's no laws because the Adam who claimed she committed adultery were refuted. So that's how this Rav Chia bar Avin and Rav explained, me and Rav Chia bar Avin explained the case this way. That's how you explain the Bryce according to Ula. Ula says in general, the Chum say you always start off with 23 because even a case of 3 could turn into 23 if other Adam hear about it. Here it's speaking about where you started with 23. But you started with the court of 23, but the Adam were turned out to be liars. Now we're talking about So in a case like you start with 23, but in a case where the father's demanding his $100, that's a case of 3. That's one way to explain this. Okay. Again, we're explaining the machlokas Ula and Rabbah in the how they explain machlokas Rav Meir and Rabbanan. Right? He says no. Even the Rabbanan are also concerned that you're worried about laws. You're worried about rumors. So you shouldn't start with just 3. You're also worried about Kvan Shom. If you start with 23, you shouldn't disperse them. And you know what happened over here? Over here, it's coming when he brought the Adam originally. When he brought the Adam originally, he said, "Look, he comes to the court, and he says, I have Adam." And he didn't say the Adam did not warn her with what the punishment would be. The high town was this town of the Tanya. Besides maces, it's talking about maces, a person who incites other people to avodah zarah. It says other chayvim misa shebetorah, aim a misa or some. You only kill them. In other words, by maces, it's easier to kill the guy because of his terrible sin. By other cases of capital cases, you don't kill them unless there's an Ada, and that's a course of 23. The Adam, and you have Adam. The Hasra, and Adam had to warn the guilty person about doing the sin in advance. He warned them. You let them know that you're chayiv. I'm warning you, and you're chayiv misa besan. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, do be'eza misa hunerag. You got to tell him which case. Now, in this case, if she was an arusa, this woman, he claims his woman is a rusa of being of committing adultery, the punishment would be skila. If you didn't warn about the skila, it's not a capital case anymore. Not a capital case. Says it. So that's what we're talking about over here. Meaning, what are we speaking about? Haitanu. In other words, the way to explain the case over here is Chum say tavu mamon b'shlosha, tavu nefashos bes b'shlosha. How will Ula explain that? How will Ula explain? You always have to be worried about a case of 23. So, right, according to Rabbanan, you always have to worry that somebody will hear about it. It should always be a case of 23. He says, no. It's speaking of over here where he's bringing the Adam, before you even set up a court of 23, he says, the Adam didn't tell her what the punishment's going to be. If the Adam didn't tell her what the punishment's going to be, it's not a capital case anymore. So in a case like that, even Rav Meir would say, you need 3. The Chum say, no, you still need 23. Why? Because Chum say, you don't have to tell them what punishment they're going to, you tell them that they're going to be killed. But if you don't have to tell them how they're going to be killed. That's the machlokas over here. Says Rashi. It's very hard to commit a murder if you hold this way. Rav Meir Suffer, we're in the wide lines in Rashi, right smack in the middle of it. The different maskul is above, Abaya Omar. But that's the every maskul. But in the middle of the Rashi says Rav Meir Suffer, Sulek Achadin Nefashos, V'hani Shlosh Shasaki. In other words, when he came to court, Abai says, if there was no Adam, everybody agrees. No, if there was no Adam, he just comes to court and he accuses her, then you have to worry, maybe Adam will show up. But over here, he showed up with the Adam. And the Adam say, we warned her, but we didn't tell her it's going to be skila. Maybe it's Sreifa, maybe it's Herek, maybe it's Chenek, maybe it's one of the other ones. So Rav Meir says, once you didn't tell her that the punishments, even if you warned her in advance, and you saw her commit adultery, but if you didn't tell her what the punishment's going to be, Meir says there's no din of fasha, so therefore you could start with, you don't go with the 3. And therefore, right, the chinami is yishal me'akas, right? So like a din of fasha. So v'hani shlosh sagi l'meid din of mamas. The chinami yuzmu, even if these 3 will be refuted, yishal me'akas. Rabbanan say you pay the 100. It's only a money matter. Rabbanan say if you keep an asra misa, din of fashas. Ika or Mikdala, she's killed anyway, even if you don't, Rabbanan say she's killed anyway, so it's a court case of 23. If you have Adam that say we warned her and we told her she's going to die, the court's going to kill her if she commits adultery, that's good enough even to tell her how she's going to die. Therefore, you need it to quote 23. So that's the machlokas over here. In other words, Abaye says, everybody reads we're laws. In other words, this is another way to learn. Besides Ula's shot, that the machlokas are between Rav Meir and the Chum, do you start with a court of 3 or 23 is because of Choshen laws or not? Or Rabbah, who said that it's speaking about a case where he said, I have witnesses who committed adultery, who said she committed adultery, but then they didn't show up. And now do you let the court scatter? Do you let them disperse and you're worried about their cover or not? That's machlokas, a little bit far out. Now we have a different way to learn. No, the machlokas are here. Why does Rav Meir says the reason you need 3 is because the Adam up front say we didn't tell her it's going to be skila. So it's not a capital case anymore. Rabbanan say it's still a capital case. Rav Papa Amar, back in the Gemara, 5-6 lines from the bottom of the page. Rav Papa Amar, Hacha be'isha chavera skin. You know what we're playing over here? Here you can't kill her for another reason. We're talking about a woman who's a like today, they have rabbanit women, learned women, and she knows the halachas. She knows she learned Chumash. She knows the Gemara. The Kamifki book to Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbanan. Machlokes is the machlokes here between the mayor and the Rabbanan is the same machlokes Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbanan. What's that? Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Yehuda, Omer, Chaver, a person who's a Talmud Chacham, guy's a Talmud Chacham and he's about to commit adultery. Does he need Hasra? No. Ain't Sarach Hasra. If he should only need Hasra, El Hafkin ben Shogla Mesit. The reason Hasra is he shouldn't say, I didn't know what the punishment is. I didn't know that this is, I thought it's mutter. I didn't think it's mutter. But a Talmud Chacham knows. So here we're speaking where the woman knows also. So Rabbi Yosef Yehuda says she doesn't need Asra, and therefore it's a court of 23. It's a court of 23 because you don't even need Asra. Take a look, Rashi is 8 lines from the bottom of the page, 8-9 lines. Rabbi also likes like a baya that ain't choshen laz, will cover it, shown him. You're not worried about that. Right, you're not worried about that. You are you are worried. He always like a bite. You are worried about laws. You are worried about covenant of Rishonim. But over here, the reason Rav Meir says you're going to 3 is because he says, right? It's speaking about the Adam say up front. We didn't warn him at all. We didn't warn her because we know she knows the rules. She knows the halachas anyway. We didn't have to. Rav Meir suffer, even though she's a chavera, she's not killed unless you warn her. And therefore, this is a court of 3. In other words, like Abaya said before, that the Adam say, we didn't tell her which death it is. So Rav Meir said, if you didn't tell her which death, it's already not a capital case. So you can do a case of 3. That's why Rav Meir says in the Mishnah, a case of 3, you need a court of 3 is good enough. And the Rabbanan say, no. Even if you didn't tell her which death it's going to be, you told her death, it's a course of 23. Rav Papa says a similar thing. It's speaking about, the Adam said we didn't warn her at all because she's a Talmud Chacham. She knows the rules. She knows that it's forbidden. So the Rabbi Yosef Yehuda says you don't have to warn her in a case like that. Well, Rav Meir doesn't agree with that. Rav Meir was like Rabbanan. Rav Meir said, even though she's a chavera, she's not killed because you have to warn her. Not like Rabbi Yosef Yehuda. The Rabbanan said, Rabbi Yosef Yehuda, that what? Even if he wasn't warned, it's still a capital case because you can kill her. Rav Ashi Omar, the last few words on the page. Rav Ashi Omar, Kugon, we're on test now. The Asr Bey Malchus, below Asr Bey Ketala. Here's what happened. Every case of death in the Torah where a capital case is a lo saseh. A lo saseh. Now, what's the normal punishment for a lo saseh if the Torah didn't say Misa? Malchus, right? Malchus, you get Malchus for over on a lo saseh. Simple lo saseh. Somebody says, don't eat basar b'chalav. Don't go into McDonald's in San Diego and have a cheeseburger. Okay, that's not a case of kares, right? That's not a case of kares. Chaylev, eat chaylev your kares, but regular lo saseh, don't eat basar b'chalav, right? If the meat's kosher, everything is kosher, right? Right? It's a basar b'chalav. What's the punishment for that? You were warned. Malchus. Okay, but here. So the question is, when it's a lo saseh which has misa, Rashi explains, he holds he only warned her that you're going to get Malchus. He didn't say you're going to get killed. You're going to get Malchus. So the question is, okay, would you get Malchus in a case? He says yes, because he says that any loka the ein lecha misa bezin shalom b'alav l'ksav lav shnit lasaras bezin. I'm reading the 3rd line in Rashi from the top of the page. A lav which is written for asaras misas bezin. In other words, the Torah says if you do this, the bezin's going to kill you. But if you only warn them for lav shenit lasaras bezin lokan alav ki asra malchus. If they warned, made a mistake. The Adam said you're going to get malchus if you do this. If you commit adultery, that's also good. That's also good. A warning. You can't kill her. Obviously, according to everybody, you can't kill her because you didn't warn her she's going to be killed. But you warned her about malchus. You get malchus there too. The Asr Bey, so again, back in the Gemara, top of the page. The Asr Bey Malchus, they didn't warn her that she's going to get killed. They said you're going to get malchus. So what happens over here? The commitment put to Rabbi Shmuel Rabbanan. The Machlokas is what kind of a court do you need for malchus? The Tanan malchus b'shlosha. We'll see later on when the Gemara explains why that is. The question is, you're getting malchus. In other words, Rav Meir says it's a court of 3. Why? Because the warning given to her was only for malchus. So all you need is for malchus. All you need is a court of 3. But Shmuel says no. You need a court of 23. Ravino Gon Shenim Sechem Ne'en Karva Puzzle. You know what's going on over here? One of the Adam was found to be family, either family of one of the litigants or family of one of the other Adam, or puzzle for Judaism. Book to Rabbi Yossi Rabbi. The Machlokas is dependent on the Machlokas Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi Alibra Rabbi Kiva. We'll just see this is tomorrow's stop. We'll just see it. The time Rabbi Kiva Omer. Lo Bashlishi. Pasuk says Al Pishnayim Adam Yakum Davar. You need 2 Adam. 2 is Trei Kameya. Whether you have 100 or 2 Adam, it's the same thing. So why does it say Al Pishnayim O Shlosha Adam? Why does it say 3 like 2? If 2 is good, 3 is good. Ella Lahachmerlav. In other words, if there were 3 Edom and they were all refuted, so the third guy might say, listen, I just went along with them. You don't have to kill me. They caused the problem anyway. No. Right. If you kill the 2 people for being Edom Zom for liars, you kill the third one too. If Hashem punished the one who joined the other bad guys, the other evil witnesses, punish them like they themselves. If you join somebody else doing a mitzvah, you're certainly going to get kosa mitzvah like the people who did the mitzvah stuff if you just joined in, because like Rashi explains that mita tova meruba mitas paranios. That's what Rabbi Akiva explains. Why does it say shnaim shlosha? And also, umashnaim nimsechem and cover apostle. Just like if you have 2 witnesses and one was found to be a family member or a disqualified witness, the whole thing is batal. Av shlosha nimsechem and cover apostle. They do some betela. Even if there was 100 witnesses and one of us found to be no good, they're all no good. Talmud Lomer Edom, they're all the same. Rabbi Yossi, and Rabbi Yossi says Medva or more than Nefashos. Rabbi says that's only if one of them was found to be puzzle. That's only by capital cases. Then the Mamonis, this guy made us b'shar, get rid of him and use the other ones. Rabbi Yomer, no. Echad din Mamonis, v'echad din Nefashos. That's all Rabbi Yossi and Rebbe explaining Rabbi Akiva, who says, why does it say 2 or 3? To show the 3, it's like 2. If 2 are found to be Edom, if they're all found to be Edom Zom, the third guy can't get off the hook and say, well, they were going to do it, I just joined them. No, you're chayiv on that, and you're chayiv if you do something good. Rabbi says, for aim aside, when is that? When do we say din nefashos there? Edus is batal, edus shebatal mitzasa batal kula shehisru behem. If all these witnesses also were the ones who warned the guilty one that not to do this sin, avazman shalo hisra, and if they didn't warn them, mayasu shnei mechavech sharo bechet shorekes nefesh. 2 brothers and a third person, all kosher, but the 2 brothers saw a murder. So you're going to say, listen, one of the brothers can't go with the other guy to testify about it because there were 3 witnesses, 2 of them are puzzled. 2 of them are 2 witnesses, 2 brothers can't give testimony together. So what are you going to say in a case like that? Nobody can testify that there's a murder there? No. If one of the brothers together with the other guy warned them, then you could testify based on that. So Amasai, when is that? Bisman she'esru b'hen, if they all warned them. If you didn't warn them, and therefore, what's the machlokas over here? So Rashi explains here on Amid Beis, now in Testament Beis, and that's the machlokas from Meir Rabbanan. One of the 3 witnesses to the woman who committed adultery, supposedly, was found to be no good. But he didn't say anything. The third guy didn't warn them. He didn't say anything. He didn't warn them. Rav Meir Sav, like Rav Yosef Yehuda, the Edus was batal, and Rabbanan say no. Like Rebbe, the Heicha, the Shosek, this guy made us bashar, umiklat, she would be killed. So that's the case over here, where he came with 3 Edom who testified that she committed adultery. But what happened was not all 3 Edom gave a warning. Only 2 gave warning. Rav Meir says it doesn't make any difference. If 2 were brothers or one was puzzle, therefore it's not a capital case anymore. All you need is 3. The Rabbanan say no. It's speaking where one of the 3, the puzzle guy didn't give a warning. So therefore you could have the Adis with the other 2, and she would be killed. That's why you need a court of 23. All right, tomorrow, Mr. Shem, we'll review this. Is really tomorrow's stuff. We'll review it again. But we have all these different views as to why Rav Meir says 3. The Rabbanan say 23 because it's a capital case. The question was, we started with if it's not a capital case, why did the Rabbanan say you need 23? The answer is it looks like it could be a capital case, and that's why you need a court of 23. All right, I'll pick it up here tomorrow, Mr. Shem. Have a good day.
Yeah.